I think we've got a delightful episode for you. Tonight's episode is called, the title is Bridging Realms Through Energy Healing. And our guest today is Erica Gholizadeh, and we're going to bring her on in just a minute. What I really like about her material, in fact, the title of this episode is from her latest book. Erica is a really sincere and balanced person. She lives here in Colorado as well, and we've met many times, and we've worked on each other, so to speak. And she's just a real genuine person. I've dealt with, of course, on the show, just hundreds and hundreds of all manner of modalities and psychic whatevers. And I have no problem talking about how sincere. And Erica really is very mindful about how she sees herself in what she's doing. In other words, she doesn't just come in and strong arm or start babbling about this or that. She's very intentional, aware, respectful, and I just want to lay that out right up front. So I think we should get to it. I think the time's going to zoom by. Having spiritual gifts all of her life, Erica was inspired to share many different experiences of healing that are available when we explore the vastness of our multidimensional souls in various realms. You see why I like this episode? Her book, Bridging Realms, Multidimensional Healing Through Past Lives and More, includes true stories from Erica's healing practice about the impacts of past life trauma and karma, after-death communication, life between lives on Earth, energetic cords and hooks, healing through surrogation, soul retrieval, walk-ins, Chimerism, inner child healing, entity attachments, adjusting soul contracts, mental illness, near-death experiences, extraterrestrial contact, split souls, paranormal activities, and the like. Erica is an intuitive empath, medium, and energy healer. She has used her gifts to help many people all over the world to get to the root of their challenges. Whether these are in past lives, the current life, or in between lives. She started her practice with hypnotherapy, regressing clients into past lives, but found this method to be limited because it depends on an individual's intuitive capacity. While she occasionally uses hypnosis, her work is more often involved intuitive downloads as she bridges realms between the past, present, on Earth and other dimensions. You can learn more about Erica at healingwish.net. Join me now in welcoming Erica to the show. Welcome to the show, Erica.
Hi, Les. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, in the intro, what I was kind of yakking about was so often we get kind of comfortable in our perception as our day-to-day life progresses, and we kind of settle into a normal, and yet we can have so much going on metaphorically behind the curtain, so to speak, in the nonlinear realms, in the etheric realms. Before we jump into your material, let's start off with your journey. I mean, you're doing some pretty powerful work here. You've given me some sessions that I feel were spot on, and can you just share with the audience how you progressed through your life up to this point of providing the services that you do?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. You know, one of the commonly asked questions that I get is if I've always had my gifts. The answer to that question is yes and no, because throughout my life, it's just gone through so many different stages based on what I was going through and all the healing opportunities. Because my journey really begun by healing myself and having my intuitive abilities as an empath and as a healer. So when I first started, it was more about being able to feel and sense people's energies and what they were going through, which oftentimes was very challenging for me as an empath, especially as a child when I didn't know what to do with all of that. So I would take on other people's pain and suffering, and I'd go through these stages of trances when I would pray for people. And while they would get healed, I would be left completely drained for days on end. Therefore, I really didn't have any idea what these gifts were. I kind of looked at them as a curse and didn't know how to manage them. And at the same time, I knew that I wanted to help as many people as I possibly can. So then, then as I began to grow up a little bit, I continued kind of going into these meditative trances where I would communicate with, my primary guide has always been Jesus, and I'd communicate with him, and I'd have a candle on my dresser. And to me, it was as if he was like standing right in front of me while we would be exchanging dialogue, and I would be asking for healing and whatnot. And I would notice that I could play with the size of the candlelight. I'd make it really big or small. I'd go into like full concentration. And even to the point of being able to move objects across my dresser. To me, that was like a normal thing, but I also knew that I was kind of a freak because once in a while when I would share certain things with people, I would really freak them out. So I tried to limit how much I shared with others, because then I realized that, I guess not everybody does this. This may not be a normal thing. So finally, when I was like a teenager and I wanted to be a normal teenager, I wanted to blend in and not live in isolation and keep everything a secret. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to just drink and smoke with my friends and just have a party and forget about my gifts and pretend that they don't exist. Well, once in a while, I'd be able to still see things, and I'd get messages. Like, for example, I told a high school friend not to drive his car that evening because I literally had a vision of his car being totaled, but I saw that happening at nighttime. So I told him, I said, whatever you do, just drive straight home from school. And as long as you go home, don't drive tonight, you'll be okay. So I made him promise me that. And he didn't drive his car, but his sister snuck off with the car keys and drove his car. And she totaled his car. So... So everybody, I had all kinds of names in school, from being a psychic, from being a freak to a witch to this to that, you name it. Not too fun. So I kind of just tried to keep as much to myself and keep pretending like I was normal. And then finally later on, I noticed, you know what, this drinking and partying is doing me more damage than good. I got to stop this. So in my mid-20s, I quit the party lifestyle, so to speak. And then I began to do my deep healing work where I began to have a higher understanding in terms of what these visions are sometimes that come through. Like when I would go somewhere, I'm like, I swear I've been here before, but I knew I physically didn't in this life. I was able to connect the dots. Like, oh, yes, this past life. And yes, I do know this person from a previous life. And so I began to have a better and better understanding of my gifts to the point where it became a way of life. Like for me, seeing past lives is a daily thing. It's practically a 24/7 thing. I go to sleep seeing past lives. I wake up in the middle of the night seeing past lives, and then I'm doing work for myself and others. I go back to sleep and wake up in the morning, same thing. So it's a lot that I feel like I signed up for. And then later on, back in 2018, when I was at a fork in my career as to whether or not I should return to corporate America, is when my guidance told me that I need to help others with my gifts. And mind you, Les, I did not have any clients. I did not have an office. I wasn't sure how in the world I was going to make money, but my guidance kept pushing me in that direction. And during that week, when I kept intensely getting the same old message over and over again, is when two of my friends pretty much told me the same thing without me even asking them, hey, isn't it about time that you start your own practice and helping people? And I thought, wow, this is really bizarre. So I remember I was seeing this massage therapist, and I told him about the message that I got. And he's like, well, you're welcome to use my office whenever you want, whenever I'm not here at the office, and I won't charge you a dime. I thought he was just joking, but he kept giving me the same message every time I'd see him. And sure enough, he followed through, and I began to use his office. But then most often I do remote sessions, but sometimes when I needed to do an in-person session, I'd use his office, which turned out really great. So to jump ahead, a year ago is when I was guided to write a book, Bridging Realms. And at that point, I was actually doing a session with a regular client. She's just a remote client. I still have not met her in person yet. And so while I was doing this session, something really profound happened that I had not experienced before. All of a sudden, I saw a past life, which is very normal. I'm like, okay, yes, this is the connection between you and your mom, and this is when it goes back, and this is where your challenges begun. So as I'm talking about that, then I get interrupted, and I get the word overlap. And I'm just like, okay, why am I getting this word overlap? What does overlap mean? And it's like as if one movie scene stopped, the other begun. And I began to see her living a simultaneous life on the astral plane with the same soul that was her connected to her mother's soul there. So she was living one life on Earth, one life on the astral. I was completely blown away because for me personally, that was the first time. And I don't really read other people's materials or follow other people's teachings. So to me, it was like, whoa, this is amazing. And when I was telling her, it totally hit home. She's like, wow, this really resonates with me. She's getting the chills. I'm getting the chills. We're both like, whoa, really blown away by all the information that was coming through. Long story short, it turned out to be the most intense healing session she's ever had. I was able to do the healing work over the phone where she had, I guided her through the usage of placing some stones on top of her while in a relaxed lying down position. And she went into a deep healing sleep while I was doing the work. And a lot of times people either go into a very relaxed trance state or deep healing sleep. Well, that was the deepest healing sleep she ever had. I had trouble waking her up. And once she woke up, and I'm like, I did not feel like she was in her body. Usually, my sensations on my end when I'm feeling somebody's not in their body is when I can't feel my feet. I'm like, oh boy. And I asked, are you in your body? She's like, not at all. I was like, oh boy. So first I tried to ground her, but then my guidance told me, no, let her be. Just tell her not to drive anywhere, because what her soul was doing was going through her entire timeline and moving through a healing process. So I made her promise me a million times that she wasn't going to go anywhere. And thank goodness she was at home. It was, Friday afternoon. She didn't have any plans. So a couple of hours passed. Then my guidance told me to follow up with her. I finally felt like I was back in my body, because when I was tuned into her, and she said that she just got back in her body. And since then, she's experienced like the biggest shift that she's ever experienced in her life. And since then, though, what has happened for me in the past year is it was as if I got hit over the head with a 2x4. And my gift has really expanded tremendously, to the point where I have the capacity and the ability to see so much more than I was able to a year or two ago. And I'm not the same person that I was. And I'm continuously being given like new things that I'm in constant awe about, and able to help even the clients that I had previously that I wasn't able to see certain things in, that I am now able to see so much more and help them through so much more than ever before.
Well, very nice. The part of what I was hinting to, and when I opened the show with that dialogue, is just the so many different ways our soul can engage. I don't know. I mean, there's just a multitude of etherical conditions and contracts well, you've been doing this for such a long time. It's quite evident in your book. I mean, it's 250 some odd pages. You've really seen a broad range of soul retrievals, chimerism, walk-ins, soul contracts. I mean, all the different ways that not our ego per se, but our soul has all these interactions, and I guess I would call them stipulations. And what I like about your book is you methodically kind of walk through them all, and you share testimonies from clients that were literally living this thing. Like there was I don't remember exactly what chapter in the book, but a teenager that the parents were having a tough time with, and the teenager was having a tough time. And when you did a session with them, you noticed that the soul of the teenager had fragmented and had a separate life that was much more challenging and caustic compared to the teenager. And a lot of the grief that the teenager was feeling was because of this split soul setup. And that's the kind of thing that some of us, it just never would have crossed our minds. I just recently spent 7+ weeks in the hospital, and I had 3 major abdominal surgeries. Well, I wasn't born with a psychic sight. I don't have the vision, but after that first operation, that third eye popped open so wide. And for about 48 hours, I saw the etherical or the astral side of things. And it really surprised me how rich and dynamic of an environment it is. and there was and how it influences our ego, whether our ego is aware of it or not. I mean, can you share some experiences like Chimerism or walk-ins or things like that to kind of shed some light on how the soul can make decisions and choices that our egos might not be aware of?
Oh, yeah, of course. Gosh, where do I start? I mean, like, for example, even with the story that you're talking about, the teenager who had the split soul, what was really profound about that experience is that, first of all, this young lady has the most loving and supportive parents and little sister. They were just like the most beautiful family I've ever seen, who were all present at her session. It's like a tight, family that really have each other's back. And there's no physical signs of anything that could have caused this girl's way of thinking in terms of always in survival mode, not thinking she was good enough, would blank out. She just had these blockages that nobody was able to understand, including, therapists, all kinds of, psychologists and whatnot that she had been to. So they were kind of at their wits' end. They're like, "Can you help our daughter?" I said, "I'll do my best." So when she came in, and once they expressed their challenges and how they would like her daughter to be different, to live a normal, healthy life, I immediately saw, I had a vision of another part of her soul that had split, that was living another life in another state here in the U.S. And that part of her is like really, really challenged, had a really rough upbringing, has been homeless on and off, doesn't have enough, worries about not having enough food, was severely abused by her father and now her partner. And so all of the pain that what she was feeling was really the other part of her soul who's living this other existence simultaneously. And so when I explained that to her parents, her father just started to bawl. I mean, cry really heavily. He's like, "Oh my God, that's why I always tell her, honey, you don't have to worry about having a roof over your head. We always have plenty of food to eat. Don't worry, you're safe, you're with us, we got you." And then his wife turned around and said, I would call him crazy for talking this nonsense to our daughter, because why in the world would he even say something like that when that's not even a problem? He's like, because that's what I felt that she was feeling and she needed to hear. So the father is like very empathic, and he could like feel and kind of know what she's thinking. What I had to do was do some healing work for her other part that's going through some really difficult times. And then, basically she had to come to agreement that she's not going to help this other part by allowing the other part of her to feed off of her energy and affect how she feels emotionally and physically, lethargic, not having any energy or motivation to do anything. And after I did some healing work with her other part and with her, then I closed the door. Like, whatever it is that her soul wanted to accomplish through these two existences, which is the contrast, total polar opposite lifestyles, just allow the other part to do so in its entirety, and for her to fully be in the present and enjoy what she has and be grateful and appreciate and remain focused and have the energy to accomplish her goals. Once I did that, her life has been transformed. She's no longer the same person. She doesn't need to come in for any more sessions. It's like totally changed her life. So my point is that there's been so many times, especially in the past year, that people come to me and I'm able to see why they're having their challenges, whether they have a walk-in soul, in which I can give you an example of in a moment, or whether their soul is split, or whether they have, chimerism, where there's this attached soul that they were born with, that they have a contract with, that may be affecting how they feel. And sometimes they can have like mixed feelings. I like vanilla. No, I like chocolate. And then they get vanilla ice cream. But why didn't I get chocolate? It's because the other part of them that's attached to them may like something different. So that can affect them. So then I go in and set some boundaries. Hey, you guys decided to have this this lifetime together, but the thing is that you cannot be affecting one another. Like with the client that I had, that I forget what that doctor's name was, but the doctor said you swallowed your twin basically when you were born, because her twin had died, so it was just her. And so that other soul wanted to be in for the ride and just have experiences through her. That was her way of growing and expanding. And she had promised that she wasn't going to interfere with her decisions. But my client, who's an empath, who can feel everything, would oftentimes feel the other soul's feelings, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, or thinking about doing something and changing her mind because the other soul wants something else. So I had to kind of separate the two and have the strict boundaries, so that, and by her having the higher understanding of what was going on. By the way, this lady, she has 2 sets of DNA. And that's why she was seeing this specialist, so she can figure out, as far as nutritionally, what she should be eating to help her, because she was having various challenges in that area. And so, yeah, having 2 sets of DNAs, having an attached soul, setting boundaries, understanding their contract. They did have a past life together, and this other soul was her daughter in a past life. So it was like a totally different existence for both of them as far as this journey together, and how to make it a peaceful one together. So that was really cool, which was very profound, to be honest with you, as we were communicating with the other soul and finding out what their needs were, why they decided on this contract, and then doing the work for both of them so it can be a peaceful and fulfilling journey for both, mutually beneficial.
Very nice. Well, there's just so much happening outside of our linear minds, from the soul's perspective and from our soul's choices and whatnot, and past lives. Like I remember a past life. I was the general. I was the top commander of an army. This is back in like Braveheart or Joan of Arc era. Well, not maybe as far back as Joan of Arc, but horses and bows and arrows and shields and spears and things like that. And we were at camp the night before a big battle, and we had chased the enemy, and I felt sure that the next day the war would be over. We were going to end it all. And so I commanded my army to set out in the morning and strike the final blow. And the next morning the army left, and I stayed in camp. And I don't know, maybe nobody came back or whatever. And I went to look, and I got on my horse and rode, and it was an ambush. And there was just a sea of dead people just all over the ground. And I felt so horrible that I had literally commanded my army into its demise, and that weighed heavily on my heart. And I know that still imprints on my life, this life, that I'm really careful not to speak, not to tell other people what to do. It's like,
Yeah, after that experience, that's understandable.
well,
Wow.
well, well, and that's what I'm getting at here, because there's a lot more going on than what we can see through our five traditional senses. So,
Mhm.
so you'd mentioned a soul walk-in. We've had people who've had soul walk-ins on the show many times over the years. Share your experience with the notion of a soul walk-in.
Sure. Yes. One client that I was helping. Now this is kind of interesting because there's a walk-in and then there's a little bit more. So first, when he was born, at that time, his father's soul had split, and a part of his father's soul went inside of him. They had this past life karma, and there was like a contract between them, basically. So he had that going on. But then when he was a child, he fell off of the balcony from the second floor. And he had a near-death experience then. And during that near-death experience, he had a walk-in soul. It was a soul of somebody that he knew in a previous life who wanted to come and save him and help him survive. So they agreed that he was going to have this other guy stay with him and help him throughout his life. And that soul was going to benefit through this guy's experiences and also serve as his guide and mentor and protector and whatnot. Well, as he began to grow up, he noticed that he was getting more and more out of his body, more confused, not all there, had like these voices in his head that he didn't understand. He had trouble concentrating and focusing on the task in hand. He began to he had trouble staying at work for his full shift. It just became very intolerable, because imagine, Les, having two other souls inside of you, one that he was born with and one that was a walk-in later on as a result of a near-death experience. So imagine having three voices in your head. Like, one is not, one is bad enough in these times. I mean, I'm sorry, but we have enough challenges and interruptions, interferences and everything to deal with.
Right.
So this poor guy was really challenged when he first, his sister brought him to me, who is also my client, and her whole family is. But anyways, so she brought him, and he was completely out of his body. Like, I felt like I was floating. And my first question was, do you feel like you're in your body? He goes, never. I was like, oh boy, okay. Wow. We got to find out what this is about. And he was so unhappy. He was pouting the whole time. He was just miserable. He just beating his head against the wall. Like, he couldn't do anything right. He had no energy for anything. He wasn't even in his body. He had trouble keeping a relationship. He had a lot of relationship struggles with a lot of people, and he didn't know what to do. Nobody knew what to do with him, and it seemed like everybody was at their wits' end. And so she brought him to me out of desperation. He's like, I don't care, just fix me, do whatever you need to do. And so she was helping translate. Her English is better than his. So once he lied down on the table, I was able to see him like, oh my God, you have two other souls inside of you. Did you have a near-death experience when you were a child? And he's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. That's when he told me he fell off, second floor patio. I was like, well, this is what happened. And so the first session, what I did was I helped kind of figure out what his contract was with this walk-in soul and decide that walk-in was no longer doing him any good. And he seemed very frustrated with my client. He's not listening to me. I don't know what to do with him. I'm miserable. He's miserable. Please I'm done with this. And he just wanted to throw in the towel and take off and just let him be. And so I explained to him what's going on. He said, yeah, it does sound like a good idea to let this other part go in peace. And maybe in the future, if they decide to in another life, reincarnate or whatever, meet again, they certainly can. But they did end up, end things very mutual. It was like mutual agreement between them, and very peacefully and lovingly they hugged and parted ways. Well, that was his first session, and that's all we got to. Sessions are usually about 2 hours long, and we did quite a bit. And when he came back for his second session, Les, this guy had a smile from ear to ear. I honestly did not recognize him. I'm like, who are you? What have they done to you? He just got back from a trip, and and he's considering this new girl, and he's able to work through his whole shift. He's getting along well with his mother, that was most challenging, and with others that he was really struggling with. And I'm like, holy cow, this is after one session. I didn't recognize him. And this time his sister was, over the phone. So she was on speaker because she couldn't make it in person. And I told her, I said, oh my God, your brother's got a smile from ear to ear. What's going on? She's like, he's really happy. I've never seen my brother be happy. He's happy. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. I was happy. Tears were actually rolling down my cheeks from happiness. I couldn't believe it. And so in the second session, we took care of his contract with his father and what was still remaining, what they were looking to accomplish. We could take care of contracts and adjust them, end them, whatever it is that needs to be done. So contracts are not set in stone. And a lot of people before they're reincarnated or at some point during their life, they decide to have a contract with another soul and they think that's it. I'm stuck with this forever. No, we can fine tune. You can learn the lessons. You could do the healing work for yourself and the other soul, and integrate new decisions. We can do it for all parties involved. Sometimes it's multiple souls, and as long as we have the higher self's permission, then we're good. So I pretty much resolved the karma that was between him and his father from a past life, and got the life lessons, did the forgiveness, all the work, integrated the new decisions, cleared everything out of his energy field, locked everything in, and the other part of his father's soul basically went back to his father's, inside his father's human body in this life. So kind of joined with the rest of him. While he is now just one person with one soul without any interferences, living a healthy and happy life. I mean, to me, it was just remarkable, just the transformation between the first session and the second session. And later when I saw his sister, who brings other family members and whatnot, I asked how he was doing. She's like, excellent. He's doing really, really well. So, so that's my walk-in story, sticking to it.
Yes, you should. Well, that's what I was kind of hinting at. Sometimes we run into blockages or conditions that we can't overcome. and our mind is just flipping clueless as to why. But we won't. A lot of times we won't admit that. It's just kind of a nuisance part of our personality. And as you've shared, no. Just, I mean, we can have a lot of challenges in our lives that are not related to just our mind. And well, I know you also do house clearing, and can you share some of your experience with that?
I would love to. I have a really fun one I'd like to share. So one day I had a phone call from this lady. Both her and her daughter were on the phone. They were referred to me by their massage therapist, and who knew me through another client. And so they were telling me that the lady's house is haunted. Now, the daughter doesn't live with her mom, and but her mom and dad live in this house out in Parker in Colorado. And they said that it's haunted. And this other lady had kept seeing this one old man spirit and would kick him out. And then they'd say, he's back, but she only did this remotely. And this lady thought that, oh, there's just this one old man that she keeps kicking out. Well, first of all, you don't just kick out spirits. You got to find out why they're there, what they need, and perhaps, what the healing opportunity is or what the messages are, and then help them depart in peace, which I often do a lot of soul retrieval to help people, go in peace and to another dimension where they're supposed to go. There's so many different choices up there. But anyways, so they're like, can you come in person? Because this remote thing has not worked for us. I said, yeah, for me personally, it's just as effective, but I'd be happy to come in person. Well, they were telling me about, stories about how the purse would just get thrown off the table, or the potted plant would get flipped upside down and would fall on the ground. They're like, we've had enough of this. They'd hear like thumping noises throughout the night, like there's horses and people walking through the house. It was great. And they're like, we're not the only ones. The whole neighborhood is haunted. Everybody is complaining, has been complaining for a while. And I was like, wow, okay. So I went to that house 2 times. The first time I went, it was all of this, and there was like a chief Indian that was there, along with several other spirits. And I found out, what they needed. And some were past life related. The chief Indian had died on the land where there was a brush fire. And so there's like different healing opportunities for the different souls, and they had different purposes there. So I helped them with of course, guidance and everything, with divine and spirit guides and everything to heal whatever traumas that they experienced and move on to a better place. Now, that happened inside the house. Then when we went to the backyard, as we got to this kind of like there's like these bushes and a very short double brick wall where you could like sit on there. And so right behind the double brick wall, there's kind of like the bushes had created like a cave. And when I got to that spot, I literally, my body was like vibrating. I'm like, oh, give me a minute here. They're just kind of looking at each other like spooked out, like, is she okay? Do we need to call 911? And I was like, whoa, I just felt some really fresh, like, extraterrestrial energy that had just been there. It was not long at all. Like I barely missed them or something. And I began to describe, I was like, I'm feeling some extraterrestrial energy that was just here. And I said, I see this like dark being. It was like all black. And before I could say anything else, the lady says, wait a minute. Did he have green eyes? And that's all I really saw was just like this black being with green eyes. And I said, yeah. And she smacked her adult daughter's arm. She's like, you see, I told you. She said, we were just sitting in the patio, and I was pointing at the bushes, and I kept telling her and her father, look over there, look at those eyes, blinking. And they would not believe me. They called me crazy. And she's like, you see, I'm not crazy after all. So in total excitement, she was so grateful for the validation. She's like, I'm not afraid, I feel like they're my friends and da-da-da-da. I said, no, they're not here to harm. They're just here to get whatever information and experiences that they need so they can just take it back home. And she's like, I'm cool with that. Well, a couple of months later, I get a call from them again. And she's like, they're back. And I'm like, who's back? Oh, they're back. And I'm like, wow, that's really strange because when I do the work, I personally have not had the same spirits come back after I do the actual work. Now, if you just kick out spirits, they're going to walk right back in. So, it's, that's not what I'm talking about. So when I do actual soul retrieval, they don't come back. So I'm like, okay, well, and I love mysteries. I'm like, okay, I'm really excited to see who is there and what's going on. So I went down there again, and I see the lady and her daughter, and the lady just, she's talking, and then my guidance is like, they're downstairs. Don't waste your time upstairs. They're downstairs. They're all downstairs. And they just kept talking and talking. And finally, I had to interrupt them. I'm like, excuse me, but my guidance is telling me that all the spirits are downstairs, and I need to see who all is down there so I can give you the proper information in terms of what's going on in your home. And when I said that, just as I said that, we literally saw their dog, it was the daughter's dog, coming up the stairs very, very slowly, making these noises, all scared. And they're like, oh my God, look at that. Look at the dog. And I don't know anything about dogs. I was like, oh, but it was pretty obvious. The dog looked really scared. I was like, wow. So her daughter went downstairs with me because she just had foot surgery. She couldn't. And sure enough, I saw them all downstairs. And by all, I mean, there was a total of 58 spirits in the basement, Les. 58, 58. I was like, oh my God. I was like, can I sit down, please? And yeah. She's like, yeah, sure. She's like panicking, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Now, mind you, I'm here with a candle in one hand and Palo Santo in another hand. So when I turn the Palo Santo on, that's like my switch on. It's like literally I could see and feel everything that's there. Without it, it's almost like my switch is off. It's not time to do anything. But Palo Santo's on, the show's on. And so then I got to the bottom of it. What happened was all these spirits that were there had died in the brush fire hundreds of years ago. And so the chief Indian that was once there that I helped, transition peacefully and helped him clear his trauma and everything and took him to a higher place with guidance, help, of course. He's the one that was keeping out the rest of those spirits. And all those spirits were the ones that were going from home to home to home, causing all this chaos and disturbing the peace of all the people that were living around there that were complaining about the paranormal activity. So I told them, I said, this is not the same people. These are different spirits, and they all need help. It's like some of them went and gathered the rest of them. They're like, she's here, she can help us, she can see spirits. So they're all excited. I mean, they brought their babies to old people to all ages, and they all gathered around. They're all ready to be free of this suffering that was, at that point, that was the biggest soul retrieval, group soul retrieval I've ever done, with 58 souls. But I must say, recently I did one with 108 souls. So that's not the biggest so far. At that time it was. But and then there's one other thing to the story. After I did that, Les, this was exciting. So we went to the backyard and we got to the fence area. It wasn't the double brick fence, it was like the metal fence. Anyways, and when I got there, I felt different extraterrestrial energy there. And I felt 2, not 1 this time. And again, I was shaking, and I'm like, oh, it was like I get wired with certain, like, higher vibrational frequencies. It's like I get kind of jittery. Like, oh, like, hi, this is recent, blah, blah. And then I pointed to the direction. There's like another house, another couple houses. And then there's this open field area where there's kind of like a forest without any homes there. There's like trees and open field. And I said, that's the area where I see the spaceship came down from. That's where it landed. And I said, please keep your eyes open, and we're going to tell your mom about the area so you guys can, because from her patio upstairs, from the master bedroom, you have a very good view of where I was pointing at. And so, and I said, that's where the spaceship came. I said, just keep your eyes peeled, because I have a feeling they're going to be back. And sure enough, Les, it was either that night or the night after. They took one short video after the next with the flying object and sent it to me. And they were just like completely blown away. And yeah. And so I was like, yes, I was right. Because sometimes you see things in your head and you feel things, but then when you have confirmation, you're like, wow, this is so profound. It was very exciting.
Nice. Well, I remember it wasn't that long ago. As you know, I was in the hospital forever, it seemed like, and you came in and gave me some a couple of sessions, and when I think about the hospital stay, because just a little more information about the hospital stay, I unexpectedly completely shut down my ability to take in food. And it happened silently and quickly. So on a Saturday morning, I'm in a hurry, and what happens in that moment is the complete shut off of my digestive tract. And so, wow. So I couldn't take in any food. And I had just made a monster burrito and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, this is food poisoning, because I think it's the first time I was just starting to cook again, and I added chicken. And I thought, well, maybe I didn't cook it enough. This is food poisoning. I'm going to feel like crap for a couple of days, and then my body will rebound. And I'd take a ibuprofen, a pain pill, and it wouldn't be in my body minutes before I'd puke it back out. I couldn't keep any food in whatsoever.
Oh, no.
And I clicked off 3.5, almost 4 days of no digestive intake whatsoever. And now I'm shaky and lightheaded. And I was talking to a friend that knew things, and they're like, are you having bowel movements? I'm like, there's nothing going on down there. And they're like, well, then it's not food poisoning. You need to get your fanny to a hospital. And I had the 3 surgeries and a couple of others, and it was absolutely a phoenix experience with me. There was so much pain between those operations that it just burned me like a searing burn of my psyche, really. And when you came in and did some sessions on me, I had thought about the event because it so blindsided me, and I felt like the hit I was getting was, yes, this was in my life agenda before I was born. This is an intended step of my spiritual journey. And then you come in and you do work on me, and you're like, you said I was healing generational ancestral wounds. And do you remember much of those sessions?
Vaguely. I'm terrible with remembering sessions, to be honest with you. I do so many that a lot of times when I get information, it's like information coming in through one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
And sometimes it leaves me a step before I can even fully write it down. But I do remember that part of your contract in this life is doing ancestral healing. And that's why you were born with this. And that's what you've been in the process of doing throughout your life. And this was like really the time to, the universe has its own way of putting us on our back to make sure that we are staying on track with our contract and mission and what we're supposed to accomplish. And yeah, that was a whole lot of karmic work that you were in the process of doing and healing for many, including yourself.
Well, I wanted to ask you one more thing. You had mentioned that when you first started doing work on people, you would take on the energy of their karma, of their issues. You would take their energy into your psyche. And now I expect you've learned not to do that. How would you explain, or how would you teach? Because I'm sure with this, the collective consciousness is doing a hard left turn, to put it metaphorically, and many people are being called to honor their ability to work with people. And if you can't manage your own energy, and you take on the energy of others, it can make your startup, when you first put out your shingle to help others. Just what are some ideas or notes that you would share as far as maintaining your own energy and not taking on the energy of your clients?
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent question. I only do things per permission now. So before, like, for example, when I was a child and growing up, when I would feel other people's pain and suffering, I would just automatically go into these prayer modes and go into deep trances and ask for healing for them, with or without their permission. Now, I don't do anything without permission. I make sure that I have the person's permission, the higher self, higher power, and then the show's on. Then we're good to go. It's kind of like somebody had reached out to me to let me know that you were in the hospital, and she asked if I can go and do some healing work on you. And I told her I would be more than happy to, but I cannot do anything without permission. And it wasn't until, you reached out and I asked if I have your permission, then I showed up and did the work as far as I was permitted to. I don't cross any boundaries. I go as far as someone allows me in. I never push my way. And that's the other way that we can also accumulate other people's karma and challenges, is by kind of crossing boundaries and not having the permission to do the work. So for me, those are like really, really crucial and important. And then also understanding that, it's not my job to help everybody in the world. I'm only supposed to help who I have the permission, who I'm divinely guided to, and up to the level that I'm supposed to help them. So for me personally, I don't really have control over the outcome. I go in with an open heart and do what I'm guided to do, and then leave the rest in God's hands, because the outcome and how things are going to turn out and when, especially like when people ask me specific questions, if I'm not given the answer, then I can't answer it, because we're not always supposed to know everything, and we're not always supposed to heal everyone, only who we're have the permission to.
Right. Well,
otherwise we take on their pain and suffering when we just do it, or if we just do it out of ego, trying to prove to the world, oh, wow, look how mighty and powerful I am. I can heal anybody anytime. Then the next thing you know, they're going to be down, suffering with some of the same illnesses that they may have helped others overcome.
Right. Well, an hour can go by pretty fast. It's time to shine the light on you. So if I've been listening to this podcast and I feel like working with you, Erica, is something I'm interested in doing, take the time, talk about your book, your services. What do you do in person? What do you do online? What's a good client for you? Share all that with the audience.
Sure. For me, what's a good client for me is when somebody comes with an open mind and open heart. The more open somebody is, the more I'm able to help them. The more closed they are, the more limited I am, because, again, I never force my way in, and I respect people's privacy and wishes. So that's really important. As far as I can help anybody, anywhere. It does not have to be in person. As a matter of fact, 90% or more of my clients are remote. I do sessions with people worldwide. Majority of the people, my clients, even regular clients, even some that are local, I have not even met in person, because that's how effective remote sessions are. But for those who feel like they need that in-person session, I have an office in Littleton, and they can go on my website at healingwish.net, where there's my email as well as my phone number, contact information to contact me. I normally like to do a free consultation in advance, because that's part of the reason why I don't have my schedule on my website, because I want to make sure that this is going to be the right fit, and that, this is going to be the right vehicle for their healing journey. And as long as somebody's open to past lives, to spirit guides, to me being a medium, and open to unfolding wherever their problems begun, whatever lifetimes. Like today, I did a session with a lady. It was her first session. It was remote. And literally 3 of her lifetimes unfolded that were all connected to her challenges today. So she came totally open, without expectations is something that also can interfere. Like if somebody believes that they know better, or we have to accomplish this and you have to tell me about whatever life and so on, it's really not up to me. Divine kind of takes over and gives me downloads of information in terms of what their challenges are connected to, who, when, where, what took place. Because sometimes when we're just focused on this life, we're limited. When we're just focused on our conscious minds, we can be limited. So this is going way beyond the conscious, being open to any past lives and having the courage and being willing to be vulnerable and move through the healing process, where you can experience, wide range of emotions. Some can. And then as long as somebody can be in a distraction-free environment, they could have a successful session over the phone just as well as they can in person.
Well, very nice. Well, Erica, I want to thank you for being our guest. I've really enjoyed this episode.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have made it back, and thank you for having me. And I'm And I'm so happy for you and that you are recovering, hopefully recovered, but at the very least recovering from your hospital visit. And I am so glad that you're back on your feet and have your freedom.
Very nice. We've been talking with Erica Gholizadeh, and the topic tonight is the title of her latest book, Bridging Realms, Multidimensional Healing Through Past Lives. Well, that was fun. Did you hear about all the different ways we can have things going on that are outside of our awareness from our ego's point of view? Just the many different ways the astral or etherical realm of consciousness can be big players in our personal life, and yet our minds, our egos, can't always be aware of it. I'm delighted to have Erica back on the show. She's the genuine article. She's the salt of the earth, like you heard at the end. She doesn't do anything without permission. I'm very impressed with how respectful she is. I'm impressed with her, and I want you to understand who she is as a person, and what you see is real and authentic. So, anywho, well, what an exciting time to be alive. We're at a point in the transformation of the collective consciousness that big changes can happen. And your soul knew this was going to happen during your lifetime, and you have your own life purpose, your life vision that your soul is maintaining for you. And sometimes it is calling us to shift gears and shift focus and shift momentum. And we don't always want to do that. We don't always want to just jump in with both feet. And so check with yourself and see if a session with Erica might be appropriate for you to shine some light on where you are in your life journey, and maybe reveal some factors or conditions that you might not be fully aware of. Like I said, I'm delighted to have Erica back on the show. Well, here we are at the end of the episode, and here you are too. You've shown up for yourself. I really appreciate that. Incidentally, there's a testimonial on New Human Living and lesjenson.com, and the Erica that is sharing that testimonial is the Erica we had on the show tonight. So we've been working with each other for a while, and I really appreciate her. Well, until next time, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Les Jenson. You've been listening to a New Human Living broadcast. If you're a spiritual seeker, you're going to eventually bump up against your relationship with God, especially if you grew up in some of the more classic Western religions. Forgiven Sinner, God's Last Savior is a spiritual book written for spiritual seekers to help them heal their relationship with God and more fully embody their own life purpose. Forgiven Sinner, God's Last Savior. Get your copy. I'm your host, Les Jenson. Thanks for listening. Until next time.